Tonight, a night of celebration takes a deadly turn at a Swiss ski resort where dozens of people were killed in a devastating fire. Witnesses describe the terrifying scenes.
A lot of people were screaming, trying to escape.
And what could have sparked the fatal tragedy. The dramatic moment, the water main ruptured and the sacrifices Calgarians are being asked to make.
These may seem like small actions, but they make a huge difference.
And diving headfirst into 2026 with a courageous ice-cold dip.
Happy New Year, Canada!
The rush and potential health risks of the frigid annual plunge.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina. Reporting tonight, Marcia McMillan.
Good evening. We begin with a New Year's celebration that turned to horror in Switzerland as a fire ripped through a packed bar at a popular ski resort in the Alps. Police say about 40 people were killed and at least 115 injured. CTV's Kamal Karmali now on the chaos and the search for the cause.
This video from inside this Swiss resort bar shows a chaotic scene. Panicked partygoers desperately trying to escape as a quick-moving fire rips through what was a tightly packed room. Outside, screams rang out into the night at the popular ski resort town of Crans, Montana in southwestern Switzerland. Swiss officials say dozens dead, more than 100 injured, the fire breaking out around 1:30 Thursday morning at Le Constellation Bar. Witnesses describing a horrific scene, people pushing, breaking windows, even trampling over one another to get out.
A lot of people were screaming, trying to escape, and I saw a lot of people on the floor, and I think these people was dead.
This young woman says she let go of her friend's hand as she tried to escape, but now she can't find him. Officials are ruling out an attack, instead saying an accident led to the explosion inside the bar. Witnesses say sparklers being held too close to the ceiling was how the fire began, although Swiss investigators believe it's too early to comment on the cause. Today, mourners gathered, placing flowers and candles at the site. The country's president calling it one of the worst tragedies Switzerland has ever experienced. Global Affairs Canada says it's not aware of any Canadian citizens impacted by the incident in Crans, Montana. The Consulate General of Switzerland in Montreal says it's following the developments with the utmost attention in close coordination with the competent authorities, while Swiss Canadians feared the worst in the days to come.
Somebody is going to say, oh, I knew somebody that died or that got really badly injured or anything, so it's going to come up the next few days or few weeks.
And Prime Minister Mark Carney also passing along his condolences, saying his thoughts are with those who lost their lives. Authorities add the grim task of identifying all the victims could take days. Marcia.
Kamal, thank you. In the Netherlands, an historic church was engulfed by fire overnight. The 19th century building was gutted and lost its spire as firefighters battled the flames for hours. Meantime, police say at least 5 people were killed in firework-related incidents, and several police officers and firefighters were attacked in a night of, quote, unprecedented violence. Newly released footage shows the dramatic moment a major water main burst in Calgary on Tuesday, plunging the city into a water crisis. This video shows the force of the break, launching a vehicle straight into the air. You can also see a driver standing on the hood of their vehicle to avoid the gushing water. A boil water advisory is still in effect in some areas, and the city is asking all Calgarians to take some small actions to conserve water.
Run dishwashers and laundry only when necessary and with full loads. Keep showers to 3 minutes or less. Flush toilets only when needed.
Power has been restored to a Cree First Nation in northern Manitoba, but leaders are asking the Prime Minister to send in the armed forces for help. Chief David Monias writes that the nation is experiencing a public health crisis after a power line failed on Sunday. Now that power is restored, help is desperately needed, with widespread burst pipes and flooding anticipated. The federal government says it's moving to support the community. Removing interprovincial trade barriers was a key priority for Prime Minister Mark Carney's government in 2025. And today, legislation that aims to do that came into effect. CTV's Jeremy Sharon has the details.
It's a promise the Prime Minister made often in 2025.
So we're building one Canadian economy.
A pledge to remove barriers to interprovincial trade announced last year that today came into effect. Bill C-5, the Free Trade and Labour Mobility in Canada Act, now means provincial requirements for goods and services and workers' licenses will be recognized federally too.
I think symbolically, it's a really good way to start off the year. Actual impact, I think it's really more the provinces than the feds that we're looking for action from.
A separate mutual recognition agreement signed by all provinces and the feds is set to be implemented by June. It will further impact interprovincial trade, but still experts say some key goods are excluded and still face challenges.
Alcohol, right? Beer, wine, spirits is one example, right, that we hear a lot about. And so there are still ongoing conversations at the provincial level to make it easier to move those goods across borders.
While 2025 saw governments across the board push to trade more within the country, several bilateral agreements were signed between provinces. Experts say 2026 needs to be about follow-through.
There needs to be tangible action on the ground this year, and it needs to come quickly because the Kuzma threat is hanging over all of us.
On the international front, the stakes couldn't be higher. Canada's free trade agreement with the U.S. and Mexico is up for review this year, only putting more pressure on bolstering the domestic economy.
I think it's fundamental to our ability to respond to the threat from the United States, from the tariffs, which probably aren't going to go away soon, even though we have the possibility of a review of the CUSMA.
Formal talks are set to get underway in the coming weeks ahead of a July deadline, when a decision will have to be made on whether to extend the deal as is, negotiate a new one, or either country could decide to walk away. Marcia?
Thanks, Jeremy. U.S. President Trump is defending himself over growing concerns and questions about his health. The White House has attributed the bruising on Trump's hands to handshakes and aspirin. In an interview with the Wall Street Journal, the president says he takes more aspirin each day than is recommended because he's a little superstitious. He also says he's not interested in regular exercise because, quote, it's boring.
Today begins a new era.
So help me God.
And in New York City, Zohran Mamdani was sworn in as the city's first Muslim mayor. The 34-year-old Democratic Socialist is also the first to be sworn in using the Quran. For some Canadians celebrating the new year, polar plunges have become a popular way to kick things off. CTV's Paul Hollingsworth looks at the risks and rewards.
With a dusting of snow covering the ice and a stiff winter breeze blowing across Dartmouth's Lake Bannock,
I'm feeling great.
Hundreds of polar bear swimmers rang in the new year.
Oh, it was great. It wasn't that cold. I've been in colder.
For some, the experience was not enjoyable or tolerable.
I was in there for 5 seconds, just my feet. Couldn't do it? I could not do it.
This swimmer tried it once.
Will you do it again?
No. New Year's Day polar bear swims are a yearly tradition across the country. In Toronto, the crowd was massive.
It was so cold. That was my first time doing that.
According to these polar bear dippers, this New Year's splash is both an emotional and extreme experience.
I love to see my friends taking on this challenge and not being at home, just being on the couch, but go out and do something.
Not to put a damper on the happy vibes, but there are health concerns to consider. Cold shock can lead to an elevated heart rate, spikes in blood pressure, and even heart attack for people with pre-existing medical conditions.
If this is not something you do regularly, I don't suggest you try it for the first time on New Year's. I think it is potentially very dangerous.
The organizer of this polar bear swim points to scientific evidence suggesting cold plunges support athletic recovery and help minimize anxiety and depression.
There's so many benefits mentally and physically. I do it for the mental benefits. When I go in and I get out, It's very challenging, but I just feel alive, feel amazing afterwards.
A jolting and refreshing way to wrap up 2025.
Happy New Year, Canada!
And start the new year with a splash. Paul Hollingsworth, CTV News, Dartmouth, Nova Scotia.
Coming up.
It's a sad situation.
Why residents are sounding the alarm over a hurtful holiday heist. Parishioners at a church in Fredericton are heartbroken after thieves stole a cherished piece of history. CTV's Sarah Plowman now on what they took and the toll it's taken on the church community.
As Canadians ring in the new year, nothing is ringing here. A church bell that holds 200 years of history is gone, stolen days after Christmas.
It's a sad situation.
Who in the world would want to take a church bell?
Nearby security cameras captured a black truck around 2 a.m. Monday, but didn't pick up a license plate.
This is the actual evidence of the cutting.
The former minister at St. Peter's Anglican Church estimates the mostly brass bell weighs between 300 and 400 pounds. Thieves left a trail of damage to floodlights, a signpost, and shrubs.
Didn't care about destroying things to get to the bell.
It's believed the bell was made in England in 1820 for the original Christ Church across town. But when that church was torn down and replaced, the bell came here.
And so it's part of our collective heritage and culture. And, you know, certainly it's not something we just want to see tossed away or melted down.
The church is also significant, built in the 1830s by the local black community. Whites and blacks worshipped here together at a time when segregation was the norm.
This church has been up and open continuously, and that makes it the oldest church of any denomination in continuous use in the greater Fredericton area.
Police are investigating. The latest from Fredericton's police is that the bell hasn't been found, and they're asking for tips from the public. What's your message to the thieves?
I would like to see them return the bell.
A plea from the parish to return a link to their past as a new year begins. Sarah Plowman, CTV News, Fredericton.
Still ahead. What to watch for in politics in 2026. After a dramatic year in politics, new challenges are on the way for both the Prime Minister and the opposition leader. Omar spoke to CTV's chief political correspondent, Vashi Kapelos, for her take on the road ahead.
Vashi, it's really great to see you. As we know, 2025 was a year of seismic political shifts in Canada. Take us into 2026 and a critical test for Pierre Poilievre right off the bat with a leadership review. Is he likely to pass it?
Yeah, it's so interesting. Exactly a year ago, if we had been having this conversation, Omar, we would be talking about the possibility of the end of Justin Trudeau's leadership an entire year. An exact year later, we're talking about the end and the possibility of the end of Pierre Poilievre's leadership. I think that leadership test, that review in January, is going to be key. And my gut tells me at this point, Omar, that he is likely to pass it. And that is because if you look at public opinion polling, a recent one by Angus Reid, the people who are decided conservative voters, about 92% of them support Poilievre. It's when you broaden it out to likely or possible conservative voters, or even beyond that base, that his support level drops. But among people who know they're voting conservative, they still really support him. The problem is, of course, all the news lately and those floor crossers and the fact that he can't even rule out that there might be additional floor crossers. If more conservatives join the Liberals and help the Liberals form a majority, I think he will face a lot more scrutiny and a lot more test of his leadership.
Vashi, of course, the other big political story of the year has been the Canada-U.S. trade war. A lot of focus right now turns to the renegotiation of the trilateral trade pact between Canada, the U.S., and Mexico, even though the U.S. trade representative has hinted there could be a separate deal with Canada and then another pact with Mexico. The fact that there is still no deal, what does that mean for Mark Carney?
Well, I think that it could actually get a lot worse before it gets better. You're absolutely right to point out that Donald Trump's delegates have really strongly actually recently hinted that they want to pursue something on a bilateral basis. Does that mean the end of the trilateral free trade agreement that has been in place now for decades with various updates? I think if it does, that could be potentially very impactful. Trump has also, I think it's very important to note, said that he is willing to walk away from CUSMA or, quote unquote, let it expire. Right now, that free trade agreement is protecting our economy. 86% of our trade is still falling under the agreement. Yes, sectors are being hit very hard, and I don't want to diminish any of the impact of that. But overall, any resilience that our economy has shown so far, and any political resilience, I would argue, that the federal Liberals have shown is largely tied to the idea that CUSMA still protects the economy, the majority of the economy. If that were to change, it's a game changer both economically and politically.
Just to double click on what's happening domestically here at home, Carney has described himself as a political pragmatist. How does that play into his domestic agenda in 2026, and what will you be watching for specifically?
Well, let me put a fine point on it. In 2026, I will be looking for the proof point around that pragmatism, right? Coming into the time when he is elected, a lot of speculation around his previous record on climate. He has said he's a pragmatist. In light of the economic crisis we face, he's going to go ahead, for example, in supporting a pipeline if certain conditions are met. All of that is in the abstract until a proponent comes forward and says, we want to build that pipeline and you're going to need, to get rid of environmental regulations to see it go ahead. If he reaches the point where that actually has to be decided on, I think that is very different. So I'll be paying attention to how he navigates that and also how he delivers on the massive promises that he made during this year, all the expectations setting around big economic growth and all that comes with it. The delivery part, the execution part is what I've got my eyes peeled for, Omar.
All right, Vashi, thank you for a great 2025 and happy holidays.
Same to you.
Still ahead, a special thank you to everyone here at CTV News. That is our newscast for this New Year's Day, January the 1st. I'm Marcia McMillan, and as we sign off tonight, we leave you with a special shout out to all the people at CTV News who helped make this show possible. Thank you, and good night.